Hi, welcome to Art Insider. Today, we focus on painting and speak to different artists on how they approach this medium. As we know, new media has integrated itself into art, and hence, painting has had to question itself and redefine itself often by embracing new materials and new techniques. We speak to Suhasini Kejriwal, an artist from Calcutta who has developed her own technique of painting and creates large-scale imagery.
We're standing here with two of Suhasini's works. Suhasini is primarily a painter, but it's hard to call these paintings. Can you tell us what these are actually made out of?
These are made out of printed and embroidered photo collages. That's what I like to call them. And I like to think of them as pictures rather than paintings, because I think they have their own logic of how they get resolved. They don't follow the logic of photography strictly, they don't follow the logic of painting strictly, but just the logic of a picture.
So just for the uninitiated that would have no idea how the image is constructed, you have your photograph printed onto a canvas? Is that
onto something like canvas, it's called drill.
Drill?
Yes.
It's a type of fabric?
It's a type of thin canvas.
And then that is stretched onto a stretcher, a painting stretcher?
Then that is embroidered.
Ah.
And then we cut them like you cut picture collages and then just applique them onto the canvas.
Because for me, what's interesting about the works is when you first look at them, you think this is just a snapshot of reality. This is just, you know, the artist has really done nothing. This looks like a traditional black and white sepia tone photograph. But as you look at it more and more, you realize it's entirely constructed. It really has no semblance of reality to it at all. You see how you have put together different elements with not only a painter's eye, but a sculptor's eye, I think.
Yes, I think that the way, the liberty that you have in collage, the idea of collage, of putting together, although I've taken things from one area, it's still constructed very much like not even a stage set, but even, I think the logic is even more strange than that. I think
maybe like a dream.
Like a dream, almost.
That was what I was talking about, this edge between the real and the surreal. Surrealism in the 30s and 40s was very much about artists tapping into their subconscious, making pictures that came from their subconscious. But now I think the subconscious has taken over the real world. The real world has been sort of designed along that surrealist model, so that's why we now live in a surrealist collage. And that's, for me, what's the exciting thing about these works.
Yeah, it's almost like reimagining something that's in front of you. So you just take the puzzle, break it up, and put it together in a way that you like. Yes, I think I drew a little bit like this also. Like I made these big drawings of cities. And what I did was I photographed the city, then made tracings of them, separated the tracings, then put them back together in a large image. So already this idea of collaging was beginning to happen.
Well, and those works are very much in between a painting and a drawing.
Yes.
And I think also the appropriateness of making work like this that mixes painting, textile arts, photography, drawing, and collage, it's a very adequate way to represent how the cities evolve themselves too, with higgledy-piggledy, all sorts of different things coming together, the contemporary coming in, old scenes such as Chor Bazaar or something like Chandi Chowk in Delhi, now being wired for the internet. You know, that's the way our lives are, you know.
Yes, I agree with you, especially in a country like India. I think where the old rubs up against the new and everything is, you see something really strange and old-fashioned and something that's completely outdated, and then you see something shiny, brand new right next to it. It makes sense to develop your own logic.
This work actually reminds me of the French painter Henri Matisse.
Yes, when I walked down the street, I just had a sense of, this is just beautiful to just take pictures in. You just get a sense of design, of repetition, and almost of a set again.
Well, again, I think that's the amazing thing of it is the painter, your own painterly eye putting together the elements. I love the very old-fashioned iron, almost geometric balustrade, and then juxtaposed with these vine leaves, which again you've cut out in meticulous detail, but they turn into a very strange, organic sort of seaweed-like thing climbing up and down the side.
Up next is the artist duo Tukral and Tagra, known for their diverse practice, from sculpture to painting, product design to installations. Yet, painting is central to their practice. We speak to them at their studio to excavate their methods to their madness.
Hi, we're here with Tukral and Tagra at their Think Space to talk about their painting, which is a big part of your practice, painting, the 2D work. And we've been talking about how modernism really kind of led to a dead end in painting. I mean, from reductiveness to geometric abstraction to the end being the monochrome, and there was so much talk about the end of painting. But painting continues, and especially I think it continues to thrive in Asia for many ways. And I think that's by bringing in other media or other techniques. And a lot of your paintings are first created digitally, aren't they?
Yes, they are composed because also in that sense that we are two people, we need to solve all our sort of imagery and queries and interrogations all on one screen before we actually start the process of painstakingly painting it.
So the decisions and what to use and what colors is totally worked out on the computer.
Most of it is worked out.
All your fighting goes on
All
there.
your fighting. Well, we don't really have the time to fight now.
Don't have the
but,
time to fight.
But it's
Do
all...
you ever end up making a painting that you like a lot better and he doesn't really like that painting and vice versa? And you almost say, that's Sumir's painting, now that's not my painting.
Well, it's also... It has never
That's never
happened.
happened,
It's
okay.
mostly like sorted, kind of mood swings are taken and handled in very well
If
within
that
the
happens,
first
then you give
phase.
a gap of like 3 days. Then
We
And
kind
come
of
back and look at it with fresh eyes or something. I see. And do you literally like work on that design on the computer together at the same time, or is it something like a ping pong match
It's a
where
ping
somebody
pong.
does it and then somebody else?
Initially, we used to work on like the same imagery 2 ways, but now it's like if one is doing, the other one is supporting and fueling in constantly. So I think by this time it is much more relaxed way of approaching a subject matter rather than hassling or kind of rushing in.
Well, because there's now been about 4 or 5 major sort of series of paintings.
Yes,
where a
subject
subject
matters.
gets.
And if you look at the process is also first making in digital, then coming back to the analog. It's like it's not a first we make in digital, then we project, then we draw again to come back to the new forms.
So you're saying some of there's surprises and still the element of chance that is in the actual creation of the painting. So it doesn't look exactly like the digital.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of feel like when you know that it is not working, you kind of then meet that way, that you kind of try to solve it instead of fighting it. And it was more of drawings initially, and then the drawings were constructed into the software so that we get this vector quality of it. Now the drawings are then turned into a 3D software. We are using 3D, so we make things in that and then kind of use them. So they are sourced, they are photographed, they are sketched and reworked in 3D, which looks like exactly a final object.
If you look at the balloon painting, so those are first constructed in the 3D software. So then the imagery came from there, then it come back to the layering of the colors what we want to do.
I see. So do you ever construct things on the computer that you can't paint by hand? Has that happened yet? Like you've stumped yourself? Has that ever happened?
No, like what are you saying?
No, not
Like we love this is a design, and then when it comes to drawing it and painting it, you can't do
so
it.
yeah,
Like,
so it was something like this, right?
Yeah.
It took like forever
Too
because we
long,
can keep
yeah.
on going in deep,
I
but
see.
not necessarily reaching it onto the final version if we paint it.
So this is
So
more
that's
as
like
a photograph, you know. So it's a photograph. Then but there's no masking in this. This is like pure painting in this whole.
So
all
this is a
everywhere,
very
you know.
different sort of a thing than most of our other works.
So all the works you see here, there are 3 different techniques used to make the works. So it's like,
Yes, yes. So this has multiple techniques.
Yeah,
in
that's
one
the one
piece,
piece, yeah.
yes. Oh, interesting.
Time for a short break, but do join us back as Pete interviews the iconic Bharti Kher. An artist of ambitious intellect, Bharti Kher is well known for her works using the common bindi in dazzling symphonies of texture and color. She has pushed the parameters of abstract painting into realms of collage, psychology, and even feminism. We spoke to her at her studio.
Hi, we're here in one of the 2 studios of Bharti Kher, actually, because Bharti makes a lot of different stuff. A lot of sculpture, actually, which is in a different studio. We're in the studio for the bindi works, which I'm sort of stumbling over the terminology. I want to talk to them about paintings, but they're not really paintings. What do you call them?
I do, I call them bindi paintings.
Bindi paintings.
Yeah.
But there's no paint. Well, there's some paint on the board.
Well, we repair all the surfaces, and don't forget I was trained as a painter before I actually became a sculptor. So painting is very much in my DNA, and so is the idea of colour fields. And you'll see downstairs all my bindi works are abstract. So they deal with the idea of structuralism, abstraction, colour field.
Which are all ideas coming out of painting.
Absolutely.
Really.
Absolutely.
Well, we've been talking about how artists have kept painting relevant and alive, and by injecting new life into it through new materials. I think a lot of artists have actually been doing it more through content and imagery rather than a bit with materials. But what's interesting is that you've never been tempted to make the bindis images, pictures, representational.
I think for me it just becomes a little bit too obvious that it becomes too illustrative. And also, I have this deep desire to be an abstract artist, I think. So I think between...
you are being an
Yeah,
abstract
and I am
artist.
being one, and I'm able to do both, which is very interesting in my practice. I'm a deeply narrative artist upstairs that deals with
You've
figuration.
made some abstract sculptures.
Yeah, but mostly I deal with the idea of the body. There's abstraction in the work, but I'm referring constantly to figuration. Certainly, it's certainly in the earlier works, but in the bindi works, it's strictly abstract.
Well, but it does very much involve the problems of painting, composition, the push-pull, I mean, classic problems of abstract painting. But the amazing thing is that the bindis have given you incredible freedom at the same time. By limiting yourself to a media, which wasn't really never used for art before, it's actually opened up an incredible expanse of types and styles and expressions.
You know, what's interesting for me is that, one, it's... the way I started looking at the bindi was as a ready-made. So in some sense, they're sculptures, they're sculpture paintings. And so that was the genesis of the work, and how I actually began was through my interest in the ready-made. And then I realized that I have this material which is extraordinarily adaptable.
Well, that very first bindi work was the Spit and Swallow
Yeah.
on mylar.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after that? No, you used the bindis on those little Bollywood paintings
on
first.
the Bollywood paintings, and then on some small sculptures, which were cassettes. I was using them on those, and then I moved on to a two-dimensional surface, and then from then immediately worked onto three-dimensional, which were the animals, the two mountain dogs.
Yes. And the big elephant has a skin of bindis, and you've kind of left that behind a bit.
Yeah, I think the work shouldn't sort of at some stage become generic. I think you have to push the practice, and the idea for me is that if I've got this material, which for me now has become a language, so I've created a language out of the bindis. So, and I speak then it every day through the works. I don't think it's necessarily interesting to be repeating yourself constantly.
No, but the bindis have just become your pigment, rather than with and in any way any painter moves the material around, you do that with the bindis very much. I mean, and you can see some are much more monochrome, some are totally polychrome, some are geometric, some are completely organic.
Well, I think I go through series in the studio now. It looks like there's a lot of different sort of variation, but for me, in the way that I create the structures of the works, they are the map pieces. So then they are the microcosmic pieces, and then there's the macrocosm. So these are part of a series called Dark Matter, and so they talk about sort of spectral spaces, also sound. So there's also the pieces that relate very much to the idea of hearing. So titles would be things like somatic cell nuclear transfer, or a space that echoes. They're about sounds, and then there's the other pieces which are about cells, the body. So these pieces down at the end of the studio, they're really about, so I did a series of works which were cell 1 to 5, and they really start then to talk about the internal workings of your body, my body specifically.
So what you've done is invested abstract art with content.
Yeah, and also that's what I said, for me it's a language, and now I'm able to, just through making or doing a body of work for maybe 15 years now, or 10 years I'd say, is that I've created a sense of my own language. So these for me are they're a kind of strange abstract language which I'm able to quote and requote through my own work.
And you're actually being inspired by, say, medical things or outer space photographs. So there are sources.
Yeah, I source, and then you'll see the map pieces over there. I use found maps, or maps, say, from the 80s or from the 40s, where then I sort of take them out. I may reconstruct them, I may blow them up, or I may use the originals, and then I work over them. And so what the bindi then becomes is a kind of mask that obscures a geography. It's a way of kind of completely declassifying an area. You just then obliterate the surface, and you kind of create this sense of perhaps that territories then become sort of demystified and demarcated through them.
I think for me it's a mystery of how pre-planned are these? How do you see it, or is there a lot of just chance and play going on in the making of this?
They're all completely on the spot. So
on the spot, created.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have, when you start, you really don't know what it's going to end up.
I'll make a drawing. So with these, say, I'll draw the circles. So I'm drawing. I work actually with these works quite strangely through the negative. So I'm looking at the negative spaces, which is the board. So I'm deciding what to keep and what to cover. And then it's a question of layering, like painting. You create the under, and then you start to layer over it. And a lot of the works look very, very different from the beginning.
But you think they are constructed very much the way you would construct a traditional painting?
Yeah.
So that's all for Art Insider today. Do join us next week for yet another episode.